What's up, people? My name is James Blissett, professional gambler and founder of Lucrative MMA, which is my handicapping service where I help people make money from betting on MMA. This year, we've been doing amazing. We're up 45 units over the last 2.5 months. Is that how much it's been now? We're midway through March and we're already profited 45 units with about a 30% ROI. So I'm just looking to crack on and keep this crazy winning streak we've been having going. It's a good card to do it. UFC 286, the return or the trilogy of Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman should be a banger. I've been taping these fights for the last 4 or 5 days. I've sort of finalized my tape over the last 24 hours and I'm ready to break down every single fight. I've already done a podcast, Die Hard MMA podcast this week. Thank you for everybody who watched that. But I have some thoughts that I wanted to share with you personally on this channel, and especially after doing a little bit more tape over the last 24 hours. I have some things that I think are going to help you make money this weekend. So stick with me through this podcast. We're going to break it down fairly quickly. I don't want to be speaking about the fights for too long. It's going to be a bit of a shorter one. You know, I usually go in depth on the fights and speak about the technicalities between them and stuff. But if you do stick with me, you'll probably make more money this weekend. And that's always the goal, right? If you want all my official picks and predictions, if you want to join the money train that's been going on throughout 2023, then you can join me on lucrativemabetting.com. All the links are in the bio. Every single week I get messages from people telling me, you've earned me so much money. This has been an amazing investment. You can check all of those. Most of them I don't post up, but the ones I've posted up are on Twitter, on my review page. We earn a lot of money. So we're going to continue to do that. And without further ado, I'll get straight into the first fight of the night. First fight of the night is one of the best fight of the nights for the money, in my opinion. And that is Veronica Hardy, formerly known as Veronica Machado, versus Juliana Miller. Now, there's actually a better, she used to be Veronica Macedo, right? There's actually a better VM fight in this weekend. That's Valeska Machado. For those of you who don't know, it's Tina Black. So shout out to Tina Black. And shout out to Daz Files. I can see he's in the chat now. I know we had a little laugh over Cilla Black. I don't know if you guys know Cilla Black, but she used to be presenter on TV in the UK. She used to do Blind Date. Remember that? I think she's passed away now, so rest in peace. But Valeska Machado is a serious prospect. She should be in the UFC. So if you want to watch the better Valeska or the better VM this weekend, you should watch Invicta 42, I think it is. Valeska Machado's fighting in the main event. She's a very good fighter. I hope to see her in the UFC sometime soon. But we don't have that on the UFC. We got Veronica Hardy. She's fighting Juliana Miller. Veronica Hardy is coming in off like a 3-year layoff or something. And in that time, I don't see her doing too much training. I mean, on her Instagram, she's been doing a lot of presenting work. She's got married to Dan Hardy. That's why her surname changed. Former UFC fighter Dan Hardy. She got married in December. I don't know if she's been grinding in and out of the gym constantly. She didn't look great at the best of times when she used to fight in the UFC 3-4 years ago. She got a couple wins in the UFC, but she only got 1 win in her last 5. That win was against Poliana Viana. It was an early armbar. Women's MMA armbar, that stuff happens sometimes. She's a striker. She's a good striker. She's tenacious. She's got good kicks, very good kicks, spinning back kicks, spinning wheel kicks. She's very flexible with her legs and her kicks. And that's what she's going to try and do here. She's going to try and stick on the outside and just kick Juliana Miller. But I don't think it's going to work, guys. I think Miller's going to probably ground her. Miller's a massive favorite in this spot, And it was a little bit surprising initially to see Juliana Miller at this favorite price tag. Just because in my head, Veronica Machado, she wasn't, this complete bum. In my head, I haven't seen her fight in 3-4 years. But then when I went back and watched tape, I'm like, all right, Miller's way too tenacious. She's way too physical. She's probably going to get a fight to the ground at some point. And honestly, I don't like Hardy's bottom game at all. I don't think she's good from bottom. I mean, what's that one fight? Ashley Evans-Smith, she was just rolling for knee bars consistently for like 15 minutes. She just kept rolling for knee bars. And she ended up getting finished from elbows. And I think probably the similar thing's going to happen here, man. So Juliana Miller to win inside the distance is going to be my pick for this one. And we'll get on to the next fight of the night. And I was going to bring up some graphics here, but it just takes too long to transfer them. And I have to zoom in and stuff. So we're not going to do that now. But I haven't added the graphics for a long, long time, and I don't know if it adds anything to the podcast, guys. What do you think? I'd actually really like to know your opinions. If you guys have been watching me for years, because I've been putting out content for years now, helping people make money for years, and if you go and watch my content from when I first started putting it out, I was putting the faces of the fighters on the screen, you know, like the topology lineup. So I'll do it right now. I used to do this. Now, do you think this adds anything to the podcast? Because I don't really know. So if you could just answer that question, because at the end of the day, this content is for you guys, right? So I'd appreciate if you let me know if this adds anything to the content or not. If not, I'm just not even going to bother. But yeah, next fight of the night is Klein. Ludwig Klein versus Jai Herbert. Now, Ludwig Klein is coming in from breaking everybody's parlays last time out because Mason Jones fought him. Mason Jones was like a minus 400 favorite. And Ludwig Klein ended up winning that fight. You know, it wasn't a result I expected. I thought Mason Jones was going to go in there and steamroll him. But he didn't do that. Ludwig Klein showed that he's strong in the clinch. Ludwig Klein that he shows that he actually can fight under pressure, because at one point we thought he couldn't fight under pressure. And Ludwig Klein showed, you know, a well-rounded skill set there. He got takedowns. He was hurting Mason Jones on the feet. And he done well in that fight. And on the other hand, we got Jai Herbert, who, you know, he's had an up and down start to his UFC career. Obviously, he lost a good few fights when he first came in. He got knocked out brutally. I remember that knockout. Speaking of Veronica Hardy last time, the reason Dan Hardy, her now husband, got fired from the UFC, from his commentator's job, and I think he was going to come back as a fighter, was because of this fight. It was Jai Herbert versus Francisco Trinaldo. Trinaldo knocked him out. It was a bad knockout. And basically, the referee, Herb Dean, didn't stop the fight. Dan Hardy shouted about it, and he kind of got fired. It was actually something else. Apparently, something between Dan Hardy and a female member of Stars went on backstage. But this was kind of what started the rift between Hardy and the UFC, in my opinion. You know, Dana White doesn't like that sort of stuff. But it was a bad knockout, right? The point is, it was a bad knockout. Jai Herbert got knocked out badly. And that was his debut. And he was actually winning that fight. It was a very close fight. It was 1-1 going into the third round. It was close, but he was winning that fight as an underdog on his debut against a very, very good, solid veteran in Francisco Trinaldo. Got knocked out brutally in that fight. Then got Moicano. And we know Moicano is going to steamroll you if you don't belong in that top 20 in the division. And Jai Herbert doesn't at this point. His striking does, but his grappling wasn't that good. And he got shown there. It got shown that his striking wasn't, or his grappling wasn't up to par. He got dominated on the ground, got finished. And then he knocked out Worthy. Then he had to fight Ilia Tuporia, which was a bad loss because he almost knocked him out. And then he got knocked out. It was a massive underdog there. And then he come back and fought Carl Nelson. So, you know, he's 3-2. But those 3 losses against Trinaldo, Moicano, and Tuporia, I mean, those are 3 tough fighters, you know. So he still managed to get 2 UFC wins. Worthy, not really UFC level, but he's a long-range striker. He's from England, so he's in the same country as this event is being fought on. He's going to try and stay on the outside, long range, throw his kicks, throw his straight 1-2. He's got a very, very good 1-2, very sharp 1-2, laser-like 1-2. You don't really dodge Jai Herbert's 1-2s. It doesn't really happen, right? Don't care who you are, you're going to get caught by those 1-2s. And he's not even bad in the pocket as well. He's decent in the pocket. So in this fight, I do think Klein has the edge. The big caveat we have to speak about, or the big intangible, you know, I always speak about intangibles. These are free. This is a really important thing. Before I round up who I think is going to win this fight, I've been saying it all week long. I've been saying it last week. I've been saying it to my members for months, years. There's 3 ways in which you cap a fight, right? Or there's 3 things you have to look at when you cap a fight. The stylistics, the statistics, and the intangibles, okay? So I'll go into them a little bit later in the Usman versus Edwards fight. But for now, the intangible going into this fight is that Jai Herbert fought a completely different game plan than he usually does in his last fight. He got knocked out brutally by Ilia Topuria to make it 3 finishes in the UFC. All his losses in the UFC has been via finish. So he came back in the next fight against Carl Nelson, and he didn't fight like he usually does. He wasn't loose. He wasn't bouncing. He wasn't flowy. He was very tentative. He was shy. He didn't throw a lot of strikes. He was low volume. He got outstruck for periods. He got held up against the cage. It wasn't very good. He still won the fight. He won the fight via decision. But it was a very different Jai Herbert. So the intangible is, that was his last fight. Is he going to come into this fight shy? Is he going to come into this fight where he's not really his usual self? It's a hard one. It's a hard one, right? We don't know. And that's the thing with MMA. A lot of times, we don't know how these fighters are going to perform in the cage. We can look back at tape, but sometimes they just come out with a completely different game plan. Sometimes they come out and they don't look like their former self. It's tough. In this fight, I do feel like Klein's going to give Jai Herbert some trouble just because Klein hits hard, man. He really does, and he's fast. He hits fast and he hits hard. So Jai Herbert may get cracked once or twice and go back into that shell that we saw when he fought Carl Nelson. I don't think Jai Herbert's going to like facing a power striker like Ludovic Klein, especially as Ludovic Klein can mix in the takedowns here. And we know Jai Herbert, he has good takedown defense in my opinion, but he doesn't have good grappling. If Ludovic Klein gets on top, it could be trouble. I just feel like at this point in their career, Ludovic Klein's just, he could be a level above. Maybe not a level above in just straight skill set, but in terms of how they match up, I think he's going to be the one pushing the pace. I don't think Jai Herbert's going to like the pace and pressure that Ludovic Klein puts on him. I think Klein's as good a counter striker as Jai Herbert, and I think the wrestling upside is there for him as well. And also just the momentum upside. He's coming in off a big win. Jai Herbert did have a win in his last fight, but he didn't fight to the best of his abilities. So, you know, all of that into the pot, like I always say, I do think Ludovic Klein should take this win here. The next fight is Joanne Wood versus Luana Carolina. Before we get into that one, because I don't really want to break that one down, but I have to do it. Before we get into that one, I just want to shout out to everybody in the podcast. Daz Files, Cooking with Gas. Sean, we got Mushroom. Mushroom's the man. James, you're a beast. Daz Files in there. Chris is saying, Lucrative and Liam picks fights is all you need. If I'm on the opposite side of an actual bet, I'll sit it out. Shout out to Chris and shout out to Liam. Everybody loves Liam, so do I. Mushroom saying Lucrative MMA is an absolutely appropriate name. Yeah, man. We make a lot of money here. Smash the like and subscribe. Thanks for reminding me. I always forget. It's free. If you like the content, like it. It doesn't cost anything. So a few people saying, Sean's saying he likes to see the screen with the fights you're talking about. Fub is saying only for casuals. Daz is saying, no, it's better to see facial expressions and eyes. Yeah, I like that one, Daz. Fub is saying, I bet Klein against Mason. That's a great bet, man. I really think that's a great bet. Shane is saying, the only thing he finds helpful for breakdowns is timestamps for each fight after the stream has been uploaded. Yeah, I've spoke about that before. Tajik Bay, shout out to Tajik. Grateful dude. We got a lot of people in here, man. Yeah, there's some unused screen space at the top on both sides. There's maybe an overlay, a smaller window. Yeah, potentially. I'm going to do this up. I've got a few ideas for how I'm going to make this room up. But I just haven't got around to it yet. Been quite busy, but I will do that. So it's going to look a lot better aesthetically anyway. No need for the bankroll. This is about the bankroll, man. So yeah, the next fight is Joanne Wood versus Luana Carolina. Not going to spend too much time on this one, guys. Joanne Wood is coming in off 2 straight first-round defeats. But big caveat, she lost to Alexa Grasso in the first round, which is the current women's champion. And she also lost to Tyler Santos in the first round, which is the former women's champion in my eyes. I had Tyler Santos winning that fight against Valentina Shevchenko. So, we can't take too much away from Joanne Wood for those losses. On the other hand, we can say that she's 37 years of age. Is she 37? That's old, man. I mean, especially for a woman's lighter weight class fighter. This is all off the top of my head. I think, yeah, she's 37 years of age. She's, I don't know. I don't know where she is mentally coming in off 2 straight first round losses. I oftentimes like to fade fighters when they are taking a big step up in competition, or I should say bet on fighters when they're taking a big step down in competition, just like Joanne Wood is doing here. But I can't do it, guys. Luana Carolina is long. She's rangy. She's tall. She's going to match JoJo in terms of her reach and her height and her physicality. I think she could potentially get top time. I think the fight's probably going to be a close striking fight, though. Joanne Wood's a good striker, but she's open to be hit. She doesn't have good defense. She has very good offense, good Muay Thai striker. She'll throw every shot in the book. She throws elbows, punches, knees, lots of knees, good clinch work, kicks, lots of leg kicks, lots of oblique kicks. But for me, I just feel like Carolina's going to spam a lot of volume as well. So, I have to say that Joanne Wood probably gets the fight because she's a level above. But in this spot, she's just getting older and older, not getting any younger. No one can do that. Luana Carolina, yeah, she's coming in off a brutal knockout last time against Molly McCann, but this is just the type of fight I like to stay away from, guys. I don't really see the fight being finished. So, maybe an over is somewhere you go. A lot of times on women's MMA, you do look to the over, but I mean, it's juice. It's juice. So I probably wouldn't even play. I mean, you're talking like minus 350 for the over 2.5. Yeah, so it's just a pass fight for me, guys. If anything, I'd sign with the dog, honestly, just because of all the things I mentioned. I think Luana Carolina at plus 150 is probably a better bet than Jojo. I'm minus 175 or minus 180 now, but I do expect Jojo to get the decision win. The next bet or the next fight we have, I always say that, Jake Hadley versus Malcolm Gordon. Not too much to say about this one either, guys. There's certain fights I like to break down a lot. There's certain fights I like to speak a lot about. And there's certain fights I don't, like the last fight. This fight, I don't have much to say. Malcolm Gordon has exceeded expectations in the UFC. When I was looking at his tape when he was coming in, I didn't think he was a good fighter, but he's done well. He's obviously got knocked out. He's got finished in every one of his losses, but he looks okay. He doesn't look terrible. He's won a couple of fights in the UFC now. Beat Figueiredo, beat Daniel Da Silva. I think that was his name. Had a decent fight with Mokaev, potentially took a round. Took his back, got the rear naked choke at one point, didn't fully lock it in, but he exceeded expectations. I mean, Mokaev was like a minus 1,000 in that fight. Gordon didn't look plus 800. Gordon looked like plus 200 or something like that, plus 250 maybe. So he exceeded expectations there, but I think he's in over his head here, just like he was in his last fight. Hadley's going to take him down, submit him. Hadley can knock him out as well. I don't think Gordon has a good chin. I think Gordon has a bad chin, actually. I don't think it's a neutral chin. Not only do I not think it's good, I think it's bad. So Hadley's going to have a chance to finish via knockout, but he can also just take him down, grind him out, get Malcolm tired, and finish him on the ground. So I'm taking Hadley inside the distance here, just like Mushroom is saying. The next fight is Christian Leroy Duncan versus Dusko Todorovic. Good fight. I'm very, very excited to see how Christian Leroy Duncan fares in the UFC. He was a big name over in Cage Warriors, dominated the middleweight division in Cage Warriors. Every single one of his fights, he has won, 7-0. Every single one of his fights, he has won inside the distance, except for one. That was that second Will Curry match. It was the rematch. In the first fight, he finished him in the first round, it was in the second round or first round, but it shouldn't have been a finish. It was one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen in MMA history. He flatlined him with a knee as soon as the second round started, but then the guy completely recovered. Will Curry, who is actually a good prospect, who may be in the UFC at some point in his future. Keep an eye on that. But he recovered straight away, Will Curry, and then the ref just ended up stopping it. Duncan's a good prospect, man. He's a good prospect. And as it's going to be a good fight because Dusko is a good test for someone who is not UFC level. And you only have to look at his record to see that, right? Because Dusko has now got 3 UFC wins, and they are against the bottom of the barrel. Jordan Wright, Beverly Hills Ninja, been cut from the UFC recently. Dequan Townsend, bottom of the barrel, cut from the UFC. And his other win was Maki Pitolo, cut from the UFC, right? So bottom of the barrel wins Dusko Todorovic has. He actually has a win over Michel Pereira on the regional scene, but if you go and watch that knockout, it's very random. I don't really understand how he did it. I mean, if Michel fought him now, Michel would be minus 400, minus 300. So that was strange to see that knockout, but it did happen. Dusko likes to take the fight to the ground. He's shown himself to be more of a grappler now. He's a decent boxer, decent striker, but he mainly likes to take the fight to the ground, which actually is a good game plan if you're fighting Christian Leroy Duncan. You want to take him to the ground because he is susceptible to being taken down. Because on the feet, you don't want to stand with him because he's very, very athletic on the feet. Very athletic in general, but on the feet, he's switching stances constantly, flying knees, head kicks, Superman punches, spinning back kicks. He's got a spinning back kick knockout where he's spinning back kick and then he finished with punches. He's got the flying knee knockout when he won the Cage Warriors middleweight belt. That was a brutal one. He kind of has another flying knee knockout against Will Curry, which was the fight before that or the couple fights before that, even though it shouldn't have been a stoppage. So he's got a lot of dynamic finishes, switching stances consistently. And I do think that he's going to be live to get a dynamic finish in this fight. I do think he's going to come through some adversity. I think he's going to get taken down like he does in every single one of his fights. But I think he's going to get back up to his feet like he does in every single one of his fights. And I think he's going to outpace his opponent like he does in every single one of his fights. His cardio is elite. His striking dynamicism is elite. And his power is probably elite. I mean, I think the guy hits really hard. Strong leg kicks. I think they'll be there. So I do think Dusko's going to pose some potential, a potential threat. I do think Dusko's probably going to get him down in round 1. But I think Leroy Duncan's going to come back and end it in round 2 or round 3, or win a clear decision where he wins round 2 and round 3, like he has done in most of his Cage Warriors fights, inside the distance. And again, if he doesn't, he just wins it cleanly in round 2 or round 3. So I'm taking Duncan in that fight. The next fight is Lerone Murphy versus Gabriel Santos, one of the fights I'm looking forward to most on the card. Very, very high-level fight, good fight. Both fighters are undefeated. Gabriel Santos coming in at around 10-0. I do this all off the top of my head, guys. I was on Die Hard MMA podcast yesterday, and I think I got like someone's age wrong, and the guy was like, "Oh my god, you got it wrong. Well, you don't even know what you're talking about." I do all of this stuff off the top of my head from tape, because I don't have the stats up in front of me right now. But yeah, again, I'm right. Gabriel Santos is 10-0. Lerone Murphy is 11-0. I already know that. Getting his record up. Yeah, he's 11-0. 11-0-1 because he does have that draw against Zubaira Tukhugov. And a little bit of MMA math for you. Lerone Murphy drew against Zubaira Tukhugov. Zubaira Tukhugov just lost 2 weeks ago against Elvis Brenner as a minus 600 favorite. Elvis Brenner lost against Gabriel Santos in a very, very close fight, a very, very good fight. But Gabriel Santos just outpaced him like he does a lot of his opponents. So this is a very interesting fight for me, man. Gabriel Santos is coming in off LFA, and he's been fighting good guys over in LFA. Like I said, he fought Elvis Brenner, who's now someone who just beat Zubaira Tukhugov, So, I mean, Elvis Brenner has showed himself to be actually a decent fighter. And Jose Delano, Marcio Barbosa, these guys are good fighters that Santos has been fighting in LFA, right? He goes through trouble to get these wins, though, In that Jose Delano fight, honestly, he kind of did dominate. He got caught a few times, but he kind of did dominate that fight. And that was, as a massive plus 280 underdog, he won the belt in that fight. But in that Barbosa fight, go back and watch Marcio Barbosa. That is an absolute war for that first round. If you want to watch a fun first round, go watch Marcio Barbosa versus Gabriel Santos, man. That is a good fight, bro. Gabriel Santos comes in, catching Marcio Barbosa a little bit. Marcio Barbosa puts him on the ground badly, almost finishes him, has him on all sorts of trouble, lands heavy blows to him. So many shots he lands on him, man. I don't know how the guy survived that, but he did. He ends up taking Barbosa's back, sinking in the rear naked choke, dominate him, almost finish him. And then the bell goes for the end of the first round. You're looking at like a 10-7 for Barbosa. And then you're almost looking at like a 10-8 for Gabriel Santos. I mean, if there was like another minute, it would be a 10-8. It was crazy. But then anyway, that fight, ends. The first round ends. And second round, within 4 seconds, Gabriel Santos lands a crazy head kick and basically just finishes his opponent with a head kick. And just finishes him with punches. He was done after that head kick. That was an absolute crazy fight. And then on the Santos side, he's a very good fighter, good striker, but he likes to go to the jiu-jitsu, likes to go to the wrestling a lot. I think he's got very good jiu-jitsu, decent wrestling, good striking, more of a counter striker, but he will push the pressure and make you throw strikes before he counters. Overall, I think he's a good prospect, and I'm very excited to see how his UFC career goes. The thing about this fight is he's coming in on very short notice. So this is a short notice fight for him, and he has to travel from Brazil to the UK to fight Lerone Murphy in his backyard of England. So it's a tough ask for the kid coming in against an undefeated fighter, Murphy, who has good wins in the UFC, man. Good wins. I mean, Zubaira Tukhugov, he almost won that fight, draw. Ricardo Ramos, good win, knockout in first round. Douglas Silva de Andrade, great win in the UFC, honestly, like good win. Makwan Amikani, again, these are all good wins. These are all good names in the UFC, you know. And then, I mean, arguably he's 4-0 in the UFC. You know, he could be against that Tuhugov, with all four names being top level names. So this is a tough fight for Santos, man. Murphy's a good striker. Does lack a little bit in the jiu-jitsu and the wrestling, can be taken down, but the guy gets up every single time he's taken down, man. I can't take that away from him. Anytime, he's not easy to hold down. You get him on the ground, he gets back up, and he puts it on you on the feet. He's a very good striker, very clean striker. He's not afraid to get hit, and he hits very hard. This is a great fight, guys. I honestly think it's a really good fight. I'm going to take the underdog in this fight. I'm going to take Gabriel Santos to get the win. I know he's coming in on short notice here. That's definitely a big worry. He's flying from Brazil on short notice to England. So for that reason, you might be a little bit scared. I understand. It's not an easy task fighting Lerone Murphy with a full tank. But just stylistically, I feel like Santos can match him in the striking. I think he's got better grappling. And, you know, he might even have better cardio. And honestly, like more will to win, more heart, more pace, more pressure. So, yeah, I'm going to take Gabriel Santos here. The next fight is Mohamed Mokaev versus Jafel Filho. Yeah, I'm not going to speak too much about this. I think Mokaev's going to win the fight. I do like Filho. I think he's a good fighter. He's not bad. You know, same thing as Gabriel Santos and Lerone Murphy, you know. Jafel Filho has some good names on his record. I mean, he's been fighting some decent fights. He lost against, who was that? He lost against Bruno Correa, you know, but that's a good name, right? That's a good name to have on your record, even though he lost against him. He didn't get completely dominated. It was actually a very close fight. Who else has he got on his record? Vinicius Salvador. We know Salvador is in the UFC now. Looks to be a decent prospect. He's also beat that guy on Contender Series who was 7-0, who looked, you know, pretty good in that fight. Yeah, I mean, he didn't look good in that fight, but 7-0 coming into Contender Series, he looked like decent. He's got some other guys on his record, like 8-3. 8-1, you know, so he's fought guys that are not bad, I'd say, right? Like there's a lot of scrubs in there as well, but there's also decent fighters in there. He's a good fighter. He's a well-rounded fighter. To me, it looks like he hits very, very hard. He hits very, very hard. That's what I can say about him, especially at this lightweight class. You know, you don't often see flyweights getting standard knockouts. We saw a brutal knockout from him, a brutal left hook knockout on the Contender Series. And I've also seen him get knockouts to the body. So I've seen him one-punch people to the body. So we know he can hit hard. And actually, I've seen him get out of some dangerous grappling positions. So I've seen him put in chokes that look so tight, but he's got out of them. And I think he's got very good heart. You know, in that knockout loss or that rear naked choke loss against Luan Mateus, he got hurt badly in the second round and somehow survived to the third round. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. He took hella punishment in that fight. Kept coming back. Eventually did get finished, but he basically got gassed out from being beat up in that fight. So I think his heart's there. I think his striking power. He's a good all-round fighter. He really is, man. But I've seen him have trouble time and time again in the wrestling. And so I do think, and by the way, he's come back and won most of those fights, right? But some of them he hasn't. And I do feel like Makhachev just a level above in the wrestling. He's going to be a level above almost every flyweight in the wrestling, you know. So unfortunately for Filho, he's coming up against a specialist here and someone who specializes in a martial art that he's been beaten before, you know, which is wrestling. So I think Mokaev's going to get a takedowns here. I don't know if he's going to finish or go to decision, but I do think he's going to win the fight via wrestling. The next fight we have is Sam Patterson versus Ashmoz. I ain't got much to say about this one, guys. Patterson at -300 does seem a little bit crazy. I'm not going to lie, but I just haven't seen much from Ashmoz to say like he's good or not. I don't know. I mean, is Ashmoz a good fighter? He's fought nobody. All I can see is he's got some takedowns. I don't really know much about him, so I can't take him. Sam Patterson, I know a lot more about him. He's fought good guys in Brave, solid fighters. And I think he's fought fighters that seem a lot better than Ashmoz with a similar game plan. Like I've seen fighters try and take Sam Patterson down consistently, like Ashmoz is going to do. And I've seen Sam Patterson get back up and finish him, you know. So I got to take Sam Patterson here. I'm not passionate about any type of take because we don't know a lot about Ashmoz. We haven't seen a lot of tape on him. He's undersized. He's like 5'9", 5'7", coming in against a 6'3" guy here. It's tough for me. I think Patterson probably finishes him, but we don't know if the guy is finishable in terms of maybe he's got elite durability. Maybe he's got really good submission defense. You're kind of throwing a dart on the wall if you're saying Patterson's going to finish. Hey, darts hit a lot of times. If you throw a dart, if you don't even know how to play darts, you've got no idea how to play darts, right? And you throw a dart against a dartboard, every once in a while you're going to hit a bullseye. Every once in a while you're going to hit treble 20. Most of the time you probably even get on the board, you know? But it's just risky to play darts in this game consistently unless you're getting big plus money on them. If you're getting big plus money on dart throws, you know, go for it because you only need to hit 1 or 2 to cash, right? So for this one, I don't really have a massive opinion, but I'll take Sam inside the distance just because I've seen him finish most of his fights and I've seen him wrap up the neck of a lot of guys who have tried to wrestle him. So I'm going to go with the same thing happening here. The next fight is Chris Duncan versus Omar Morales. Very good fight, in my opinion. Very good fight. Very good fight in terms of not the skill set of both guys. I don't think these guys are future top 10 guys by any means. But what I do believe is that it's going to be a banger. I think this has potential to be fight of the night, just like Lerone Murphy versus Gabriel Santos. Yeah, I do think this has potential to be fight of the night, sleeper fight of the night. If I was going to bet a fight of the night, I'd probably bet this. I know Gaethje and Fiziev is going to be the main bet, but if you have odds for it, that's probably quite short. I'd say this is a sneaky play for fight of the night. It's a tough one, man. I think Omar Morales is probably the cleaner striker of the two, the more technical striker of the two. But Duncan don't care about technique and clean, man. He walks in the pocket and he throws heavy shots. He loves to be in a firefight. He loves to bring out a war. He's got good heart. I mean, he was essentially finished about 3 times in that Borshev fight, the Slava clause, and he still pushed on, you know, until he was finally finished in round 2. He was essentially finished about 3 or 4 times in that Campbell fight on the Contender Series, in his second appearance on the Contender Series, and he fought through and he won that fight. So, I mean, I've seen the guy finished about 2 or 3 times under the UFC banner already, but somehow he's only 1-1. You know, so he's got elite heart, good durability, good recoverability, maybe not the best chin, but honestly, I think he's got a good chin. I just think his head is just on the center line consistently, so he's always going to get hurt. So that's definitely going to be a chance for Omar Morales to knock him out. But if he doesn't, I think he's getting knocked out himself because we've seen Morales knocked out now in his last fight against Uros Medic. And honestly, I don't think that's a good look because I don't really rate Uros Medic too highly. I mean, I think he could potentially be a decent prospect, but I'll say it was a red flag watching him be knocked out by Uros Medic because I didn't think that was going to happen. I'll say that. I didn't think he was going to knock him out like he did, and then he basically dominated him in that fight. You know, it was like a back and forth fight. Then he just finished him with heavy hooks. So I think, you know, Morales is maybe on the downslope now. He probably overperformed at some points in his UFC career, but this is a good fight. I'm going to take Duncan to win via knockout, but if he doesn't, I think someone's going to sleep. I'm definitely taking someone to go asleep here. You know, so I think the unders could be a look, but they are a little bit juiced, but I'll look into it. But I'll take Duncan inside the distance for now. The next fight is Jack Shore versus Makwan Amikani. Not too much to say about this one, guys. Makwan Amikani, we know what he is. He's round 1 solo boss mostly, unless he can control you for 3 rounds. He's not going to be taking down Jack Shore and just controlling him for 3 rounds. I'd be very surprised. Can he get a first-round submission? Yes. Will he get a first-round submission? In my opinion, no. I think Jack Shore's probably going to break him with pace and pressure, physicality. I think Jack Shore knocks him out in round 2 or 3. I'm not rushing to the window to bet Jack Shore at minus 500 here, just because, and I hope you can't hear that. One of my neighbors is mowing their lawn, and you know I live with all the windows open because we need to let the fresh air blow. So hopefully you can't hear that. But yeah, back to the fight. I think Jack Shore is probably going to win via KO here, but I'm not rushing to bet it at minus 500. Makwan gasses out after every first round, guys. We know this, you know. It's not like, that's why I'm not going into it. I mean, we know what Makwan is at this point. He gasses after every first round. I don't think I've seen him fight a hard 15 minutes. Jack Shore's going to finish this fight. And if he doesn't, he probably gets finished in the first round via sub. The next fight is Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. another good fight. And we'll steam through these last 4 or 5 because I don't want this podcast to go on for long. But I think Vettori decision here, probably, guys. I honestly do, man. I'm not betting Vettori at minus 250. I honestly not, because I think Vettori gets hit way too much for somebody who I want to bet at minus 250 against someone like Roman Dolidze. I think Dolidze hits hard. I think he has dynamic finishing ability. He can break your leg. He can, tear your knee apart. He can knock you out with knees, with strikes, good clinch knee, stuff like that. So he's quite dynamic. So I don't really want to bet on someone such as Marvin Vettori, because he's quite meat and potatoes. He's going to come forward, but he's so durable. He's so elitely durable. He's going to out-volume Dolidze here. If he doesn't get hurt, if he doesn't get finished, I can't see a world in which Dolidze wins a decision, unless Dolidze hurts him every round, and has big moments on the ground or on the feet, which can happen. We've seen it happen before, but I'm going to take Vettori via decision here, guys. He's got a blockhead. As I said, he's probably a better boxer. He's going to be pumping out the jab, pumping out the volume. Dolidze is not going to be able to keep up with his pace and pressure, but he may catch him on the way in. But yeah, for me, Vettori decision, guys. The next fight, Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill. Very interesting fight for me. Casey O'Neill is always an interesting fight for me because Casey O'Neill doesn't look great, but she always manages to get a win. She went to a split last time out against Mokaev, but that shouldn't have been a split. She definitely won that fight cleanly, in my opinion. It was a striking fight, but usually Casey O'Neill is not a striker. She usually puts the pace and pressure on her opponents, and she usually tries to break them via ground and pound, TKO, submissions, top control, top position, heavy jiu-jitsu. This type of style, right? She's a grinder. She takes you down. Is she going to be able to do it against Maia? I have to say probably going to be able to get the takedowns. Maia isn't great at defending takedowns. 55% takedown defense. Doesn't look that good when she gets down. Will play jiu-jitsu when she gets on the ground, which is something you don't want to see. In a Casey O'Neill fight, you don't want their opponent to play jiu-jitsu if you want to bet their opponent, right? You want their opponent to be fishing for underhooks and trying to get straight back up to their feet as soon as they're taken down. Unfortunately, Maia doesn't do that. She loves to be on the ground. She'll throw up an armbar. I don't see her getting an armbar over Casey. I know it's possible. Maia's got a good armbar. She's got a good guard, but I think Casey's probably going to be able to dominate from top position if she gets there consistently. One thing I will say, though, I don't think Casey has good wrestling. I don't think Casey sets up her shots well either. Not only does she have bad wrestling when she gets in the transitions, but she doesn't even set up her wrestling well with her striking. She'll throw striking and jump to the wrestling, but I don't think she's good at it. She just overwhelms people with pace and pressure. Maia's not the type of fighter that you're going to overwhelm, in my opinion. But if the takedowns do come, Maia likes to play guard. She can just grind out top control and win via that. So it's kind of annoying because I kind of want to play Maia as an underdog here. I'm just not sure I can get to the window personally, just because of the stylistics of the fight. Because I do think she'd probably give up takedowns, and then she does like to play from her guard. And I'm just going to be pulling my hair out if I play her and she's just on her back, fishing for arm bars when I'm like, look, you're a much better striker. You're the cleaner boxer. Get back up to your feet. You're going to win the striking. What are you doing? So I can definitely see that as a possibility. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to speak to my syndicate. I'm going to determine what my other boys think of the fight. We'll have a conversation, as we always do every week, about each fight, and I'll determine the best way to go with this one. For now, I'm kind of looking at Maia as an underdog, but I'm not going to pull the trigger yet. We'll see if the line moves either way. The next fight we have is Gunnar Nelson versus Bryan Barberena. I want to play Bryan Barberena because he's like plus 300, but he gives up his back in every fight. We saw him against RDA, gave up his back. We know Gunnar Nelson is probably one of the best back takers in the sport. He has beautiful jiu-jitsu. He honestly does, man. I have to rate him there. I don't think his wrestling's that good. I don't think his striking is that good for a long period, consistent period. But I do feel like he can take the back at will here. But it's MMA. Is he, like, this is why I'm trying to talk myself into a Barberena bet. Is he going to take the back 2 out of 3 rounds? Is it an insta-tap if he does take the back? He couldn't tap to Takashi Sato. That fight started on the feet 3 out of 3 rounds. I feel like Barb could make it gritty here. He could throw some elbows in the clinch. He could cut Nelson, make it ugly. Maybe Nelson doesn't want to close range as much as he usually does because he keeps getting hit with elbows and knees and stuff. But the path is there for Gunnar Nelson. It's very easy to see a path for Gunnar Nelson. Maybe I play Bam Bam. Maybe I play Bayern Barberena. Maybe I play him like small. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I wouldn't play Gunnar Nelson here just because I think it's a bit too chalky. If you are going to play Gunnar Nelson, in my opinion, inside the distance via submission, what's Gunnar Nelson by sub? I don't know if I can ever play Gunnar Nelson by sub anymore just because last time I played him by sub, it was against Takashi Sato. And if you're doing tape study this week for this fight, guys, and you haven't watched Gunnar Nelson versus Takashi Sato, go and watch that fight and imagine yourself in my view. I had a bet on Gunnar via submission in that fight. Go watch that fight. You probably cut your wrist for me. So fight doesn't go to decision is like minus 275. I don't know if I agree with that, honestly, because, well, I guess the submission via Gunnar Nelson submission is going to be, Gunnar Nelson inside the distance minus 145. I mean, he didn't sub Sato, man. But Barberena is not the type of guy like Sato, basically just kind of consolidated position and was like, all right, I'm just going to let you take my back, but I'm just not going to get subbed. I'm going to tuck my chin. I'm going to hand fight, and I'm basically not going to do anything. I'm not going to try and get back up to my feet. I'm just going to try and not get subbed. And he didn't get subbed. Baron Barberena is not that guy. He's going to try and get back up to his feet. He's going to give Gunnar Nelson chances to finish him. So, yeah, I don't know. Gunnar Nelson by sub is definitely nothing I want to get involved with. It's a terrible price. Minus 115. Oh, that gives me trauma vibes because last time it was like minus 110 against Sato, and we know how that went. But honestly, there was probably some value there just in terms of, I don't even want to go into that fight. But, yeah, all right, I'll take Gunnar Nelson, of course, but I don't know, guys. We'll see. The next fight is Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. A lot of people are betting Gaethje this week. A lot of people are saying that Gaethje is value. I don't know. He's such a big underdog. I understand it, guys. Gaethje's obviously a, perennial top 5 guy in the division for the last 5 years. Maybe not 5, but last 3 years. But I just think it's Fiziev's time, man. I think Fiziev's the much cleaner striker. He's the much better striker. Gaethje doesn't hold a candle to him in striking. MMA is a little bit different. The clinch is mixed in a little bit more. The range is different. The gloves are different. But just in terms of technique and striking, I think Fiziev's going to have a field day here. I think Gaethje's going to be open to the body. I think Gaethje's going to be open to the legs. Fiziev might be open to the legs as well. I think Gaethje's going to hit Fiziev's legs. I think it could be a good leg kicking battle, but Fiziev's way faster. Way faster. Looks like he's more durable. I know Gaethje's very durable, but he gets hurt. He's very recoverable, but the guy gets hurt in every fight. He got put on his ass twice by Charles Oliveira. Fiziev is just a much cleaner striker. That's all it is. A lot of people are betting Justin Gaethje this week. A lot of people are doing it. I'm not doing it. Fiziev is a level above in the striking. We've got. I love striking, right? And you can see when they fight. We've got an elite striker. Someone who's a really good Muay Thai striker. Someone who is very good at another sport, not MMA striking, Muay Thai striking. Yeah, he's very, very good striker. We've got Gaethje, who's a good MMA striker. It's a different thing. If Gaethje doesn't mix in the wrestling here, which he doesn't in any fight, if Gaethje doesn't make it gritty and dirty in the clinch and grappling and stuff, which he doesn't really any fight, Fiziev's going to land clean on the feet. I think Fiziev's going to knock him out on the feet. Probably comes in round 2 or round 3. I'm taking Fiziev via KO in this one. The next fight is Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do on this fight, guys. This is tough, man. This is a really tough one for me. I want to tell you guys how to handicap a fight, right? This is a system that I created myself, and this is what I do, and this is what has enabled me to be so successful when I'm breaking down fights and earning money on fights. I look at 3 things. I look at the stylistics, the statistics, and the intangibles. If you've been listening to me this week in my free content, I've been saying this a lot, right? And it's very important. The statistics reach, height, age, this sort of stuff, right? The stylistics, how do both fighters' styles match up against each other? Who's got the better wrestling? Who's got the better striking? How are they going to strike when they get in there? And then the intangibles. The intangibles are things like coming off of injuries, fighting to a different game plan, potential cardio concerns if they're moving up in weight, mindset, intangibles, right? Stuff that can affect the fight that we can't see on tape. So in this fight, I feel like it's easy to cap in terms of, we know the statistics, right? We know the stylistics because we've seen them fight 8 rounds already. So we've seen Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards fight a total of 8 rounds. That's a lot of rounds. We know what's going to happen minute to minute. Basically, every single round has been the same. Honestly, it really has. Yeah, there's been some differences, of course. Yeah, Leon got his back at one point. Basically, every round has been Kamaru Usman putting the pace and pressure on him, landing strikes, getting in the clinch, dominating the clinch, taking him down, wearing him out, making him gas out. That is what 85% of the 8 rounds has been, right? So we know the stylistics. We know what's going to happen when they get in there. The intangibles is what we don't know. We know the intangibles. We don't know how they're going to affect the fight. We know the statistics, how they're going to affect the fight. We know the stylistics, how they're going to affect the fight. We don't know how the intangibles are going to affect the fight. The intangibles are Kamaru Usman. How does he bounce back after being a potential GOAT and now he's been knocked out brutally? How does he come back after losing his belt? That's one intangible. Another intangible. How does he come back after being knocked out brutally? It wasn't a TKO. It was a KO. How does he come back after that? We don't know. Another intangible. Kamaru Usman. How does he fight at his age now? He's older now. He's 35 years old. Going to be 36 in May. Basically 36. Leon is 31. Like I said in my breakdown, I've got a 30-minute breakdown of this fight. You can go watch it on YouTube. I go really in depth. I said the male MMA's prime is 28 to 32. Leon is 31 in his prime. Kamaru Usman's basically 36. He's not in his prime anymore. Is Kamaru Usman going to be champion again at 36 and then fight again at 37? There's lots of intangibles. Another one, Kamaru Usman is got a great gas tank, right? The last fight against Leon Edwards, that was at altitude. That seemed to affect Leon Edwards' cardio. Is it going to affect him this time? I don't know. Did it last time? I don't know. It's an intangible. We don't know. Now, Leon Edwards, another one. Leon Edwards fight in front of his hometown. Kamaru Usman's flying across the world. 10-hour flight from America to the UK. Fighting in front of the British crowd. That's another intangible. There's lots of intangibles going into this fight, guys. And for me, that's why it's tough to get behind the pick. I'm going to take Kamaru Usman, but I find myself leaning to an inside the distance bet on Leon Edwards. I can't see Leon Edwards winning the decision. I know a lot of people have said, yeah, Edwards win the decision this time and that, but I can't really see it just because we've seen 8 rounds and basically every minute of those rounds, virtually, Usman's been winning them. Am I just going to imagine that Usman's so washed after that first fight that now he's going to lose all the minutes of the fight or way more minutes of the fight as before? I can't really see that. I can't really see that. Even at this age, even with the intangibles, I can't see Leon Edwards consistently winning minutes. So I have to take Usman for that reason. But in terms of the betting window, I don't really want to lay minus 250 on someone with that many intangibles around them. Tough, man. Really, really tough. My logical brain is saying Usman, but my gut is saying Leon Edwards finds a way to win inside the distance, maybe even by submission this time. But that's it for the podcast, guys. That's my thoughts on the fight. If you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on the Usman and Leon fight, because I'm still going back and forth. As you can see, I'm a gambler. I'm not this fight is going to win. Boom. No. I'm like, I don't care who's going to win. I care about how the fight's going to play out minute to minute and what money I can put on what betting line. If you want my full thoughts on Usman versus Edwards, go and look at my 30-minute, 25-minute breakdown on my YouTube channel on only that fight. I've broke down the entire fight card in 15 minutes here. On that fight, or on that video, I broke down the whole fight in 30 minutes, right? One fight. So that's it. I'm done now. I will be back next week. Good luck on all your bets. If you want all my official picks and predictions, if you want to cash and join the money train. We've been cashing massively this week. If you want to cash with me, lucrativemmabetting.com. Links are in the bio. We're going to make a lot of money again. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, everybody in the chat, for being here. Shout out to everybody. I love each and every single one of you. If it wasn't for you, there would be no videos. I wouldn't care to do any video because if no one's watching them, why would I even do them? They're good to look back on in the future. You know, they are, but I wouldn't do them if nobody was watching them, you know. So shout out to everybody for watching it. Hopefully we can make some money this weekend. Hopefully my picks and predictions, hopefully my free content can help you make some money. And one thing you guys need to do is go and watch my sports betting help videos on my YouTube channel. I'll do a breakdown on Usman versus Edwards, a full card breakdown. And this will get 2,000 views. Easy, right? Even 3,000 views. I do a video on actually helping people bet on MMA, how to bet on MMA, how to live bet on MMA. It'll get 300 views, 10%. Everyone wants to know this weekend. Don't worry about this weekend. If you're in the game long term, you want to be understanding how to bet on MMA, not just is Usman going to beat Edwards. I understand why it's more popular, but the smart people will want to know how to win long term, not just short term at UFC 286. So I put a lot of content out there on my YouTube channel. I'm going to continue to do it for how to bet on MMA specifically, not just how to bet on UFC 286. I highly recommend watching that stuff. It's already up there now, so you can videos there, and I'll continue to do it. Thank you, everybody. Shout out Mushroom. Shout out everybody else. The DX is there. Fubu's saying, cheers, James. Hit the like. Everybody hit the like if you made it this far. It's free, and I appreciate it. Chris Sutton is saying, thanks. That's Files. Thanks. Shout out to everyone, man. Smash the like button. I'll see you guys next week. Let's get it.